From death by sheep and carrot juice to dying from too much dancing in the streets, we take a look at 10 of the strangest ways people have died. Number 10. Death by sheep. In 1999, a 67-year-old woman in Durham, England, carried a bale of hay to the back of her motorcycle to feed her flock of sheep. Unfortunately, the hungry sheep flunked Bovine University, so they never learned patience. They charged the bike and Betty Stobbs was knocked off into a deep ravine. Incredibly, Stobbs survived the fall, but quickly died a Final Destination-style death when her bike landed on top of her. Number 9. Death by carrot juice. In 1974, a British health fiend by the name of Basil Brown had decided to improve his health by increasing the amount of vitamin A he had. His method of choice was by drinking 10 gallons of carrot juice in only 10 days. This amount of carrot juice ended up being several thousand times over the threshold of toxicity for a human being. He died from liver failure soon after he began his carrot diet as a result of vitamin A poisoning. Number 8. Death by overeating. Some people like dessert, and other people really like dessert. Swedish King Adolf Fredrik was one of those people who had a seriously insatiable sweet tooth. During a Swedish holiday, he decided to indulge in a massive feast. This insane meal included lobster, caviar, champagne, and other goodies. But what may have possibly done the king in was over a dozen helpings of semlor, a very popular Swedish dessert. Almost immediately after he finished his meal, he suffered major indigestion and died. In Sweden, he is known as the king who ate himself to death. Not too creative with the names over there in Sweden, I guess. Number 7. Death by beard. In 1567, a man named Hans Steininger broke his neck after tripping over his own beard while trying to escape a fire. Steininger was famous for having the world's longest beard. He had grown it an impressive 4.5 feet, but that day had forgotten to roll it up. One would imagine a monstrous beard like that would make getting around tricky. It's probably why famous beardies like Gandalf, Merlin, and Dumbledore used magic. Number 6. Death by your own funeral. Fagiliu Mukametsinov died at her own funeral after she woke up, having been pronounced dead and prepared for burial. The poor woman was pronounced dead and woke up to her loved ones mourning her and saying prayers. She screamed and died from a heart attack when she saw what was going on. She lived for 12 minutes in intensive care before she died for real. Number 5. Death by demonstrating a product. 38-year-old Canadian lawyer Gary Hoy died while trying to prove that the glass in the windows of a 24-floor office was unbreakable. The lawyer, who was one of the firm's best and brightest, had apparently developed the strange habit of hurling himself against the window to demonstrate its strength. Ordinarily, he would bounce right off the window pane, leaving a room full of onlookers clapping. But on a fateful day in 1993, his little trick failed, and the window popped right out of its frame, sending him plummeting to his death. Number 4. Death by hoarding. Brothers Homer and Langley Collier were extreme hoarders, and their whole house was full of approximately 120 tons of hoarded goods. They had over 25,000 books, X-ray machines, and baby carriages, despite the two brothers being bachelors. They lived in seclusion for their whole lives in New York City, and they were both found dead in their home in 1947. For the brothers, the risk lay with the junk, boxes and books themselves. They toppled over, crushing, suffocating, and killing the men beneath. Number 3. Death by bookcase. When Mariessa Weber was reported missing by her family, no one thought she would turn up 11 days later behind a bookcase. Fearing she'd been kidnapped, Weber's sister went to investigate a strange smell coming from Mariessa's bedroom. She checked behind the bookcase and discovered a woman's foot. Her flashlight revealed Weber was wedged upside down behind the unit. And this wasn't some marathon game of hide-and-seek gone wrong. Family members suspect she slipped and fell trying to adjust a television plug behind the bookshelf, and she would have been unable to breathe in the position she was in. Number 2. Death by dancing. In 1518, a woman stepped into the streets of Strasbourg City and started to dance. Several days later, she was still at it, and hundreds joined in. This was the first of what became Europe's compulsive dancing outbreaks. Authorities believed the affliction would pass if the affected just danced it out, Napoleon Dynamite style. So halls were made available and musicians were hired. Days passed, but none quit. Eventually, people dropped dead of sheer exhaustion. Number 1. Death at a talk show. A famous proponent of healthy eating and organic farming, Jerome Irving Rodale died of a heart attack while being interviewed on the Dick Cavett Show in 1971. Some of his last words were that he would live to 100 unless he was run down by a sugar-crazy taxi driver. Appearing fast asleep during the show, Dick Cavett joked, "Are we boring you, Mr. Rodale?" before discovering that his 72-year-old guest had indeed died on the stage during the filming of the TV show.